Getting great results when printing D&D miniatures on an FDM printer can be tricky, but with the right approach, you can reproduce minis that look awesome at the table. Here are my top 5 tips for printing D&D minis with an FDM printer. All the minis you're seeing right now have been printed by an FDM printer. Tip 1 might seem simple, but it's the most important. Optimizing your model for FDM printing. Not every model is designed for FDM printing in mind, but miniatures especially have very ultrafine details and features that your printer might struggle with. So finding or optimizing the miniature for these specifications are very important. Tools like Mesh Mixture allow you to adjust models, smoothing out sharp details, thickening thin parts. Simply modifying the details slightly can lead to much cleaner prints. I'm using Thingiverse and my mini factory to pick out a couple minis that will be perfect for FDM printing. This mini right here, this one looks to be good enough to FDM print. We'll do some manual supports and I'll teach you how to do that. There are minis that are supportless, which is very easy to print, and we'll also grab one of those as well. I quickly looked up D&D supportless and I found this nice Warlock model that is support free. I'll download this and show you how to slice it. Now that we got our mini into the slicer, I'm using Bamboo Lab Slicer. Tip 2 is in the slicer. It's adjusting the layer height and detail balance. Balancing these print quality with time is essential. For D&D miniatures, we want to go with the smallest layer height possible. I'm using a 0.08 millimeter layer height, but your printer, just go to the max you can with that. Make sure you're also limiting the speed, as if your speed is too high, you'll suffer some of the loss in detail. On larger models such as terrain, increasing your layer height is okay, and increasing the speed is also okay. We can sacrifice some of the detail on that because it's so big. But on the small models that we're printing today, make sure you include small layer heights and slow speed. Tip 3, using custom supports. When you're in your slicer software, like Cura or Bamboo, most softwares have an auto-generated supports. Now, I don't dislike them. I use them most times, but on some D&D miniatures, it's better to use manual supports. Additionally, make sure to tilt or rotate your model to reduce visible layer lines. This will improve overhangs. It'll also increase overhangs, so you have to have more supports. For minis, I like to orientate mine at a slight angle about 30 degrees if it's a miniature that is not supportless. One of the minis today is supportless, so that mini does not need to be adjusted whatsoever. Tip 4 might seem simple, but to calibrate your printer for miniature printing. For D&D minis, we're printing at such a small scale, we need to make sure that our printer is calibrated to perfection. Even a slight miscalibration can affect detail quality. Regularly check your printer's steps per millimeter, re-level your bed, fine-tune any extruder settings you need to. Each printer is different. Make sure that you're using the correct temperature. Calibration tests can also really help you fine-tune your filament and making sure that you have smooth prints. Tip 5 is after the print is done, we can go in and do some post-processing, smoothing and enhancing our print. This is all before we paint or even prime. Let's just sit down for 5-10 minutes and just sand or just use a little blow dryer to smooth out anything that is out of the ordinary. This is stringing, ugly layer lines from supports, anything like that. If you want an even smoother finish, consider using filler primer or a thin coat of resin to hide these imperfections on our FDM. Once this is all done, make sure to prime your model so that painting will be much easier. And that wraps up my top 5 tips for getting great results on an FDM printer for your D&D miniatures. With a bit of patience and the right settings, you can make impressive models that stand out on the tabletop. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more tips on 3D printing, world building, and everything tabletop. Got any printing questions or tips of your own? Drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear them from you. Until next time, I've been the Dungeon Designer.